Jordan plays a critical role in the Middle East's ever-changing and usually volatile landscape, where geopolitical alliances and tensions can shift rapidly. The kingdom is always juggling a multitude of competing agendas, including safeguarding its own national interests, engaging with neighboring countries, and addressing several security issues that threaten its stability. With over 2 million Palestinian refugees that comprise 60 to 70% of total Jordan's population, a public sentiment is deeply committed to the Palestinian cause. On the other side, Jordan is officially bound by a peace agreement with Israel. Jordan Kingdom exercises caution in its dealings with Israel and Palestinian factions due to its historical, political, and demographic ties to Palestine and Israel. Regional problems like Iran's significant presence and ongoing Israel-Palestine and Lebanon war exacerbate this delicate balancing act. Furthermore, given that the U.S. regards Jordan as an important ally in maintaining regional security, Jordan's strategic objectives necessitate a cautious but practical approach to relations with other foreign partners. Due to its strategic location, the monarchy plays an important role in security cooperation projects. Breaking apart these alliances might have serious consequences for the stability of the entire region, including Jordan. Welcome to Typographic Man. Let us explore the relationship between Jordan and Israel, focusing on how Jordan conducts its relations with both countries. We'll look at the historical connections that influence Jordan's efforts to achieve a balance between diplomatic relations with Israel and support for the Palestinian cause. Jordan is a country in Western Asia, located in the Levant region on the east bank of the Jordan River. It borders Syria in the north, Iraq in the east, Saudi Arabia in the southeast and south, and Israel and the West Bank in the west. Jordan, founded by colonial powers after World War I. It was initially made up of desert or semi-desert areas east of the Jordan River, populated mostly by Bedouin tribes known as East Bank Jordanians. Israel's establishment in 1948 drew a large number of Palestinian refugees to Jordan, which then unilaterally annexed the West Bank, a Palestinian enclave west of the Jordan River that Israel captured during the 1967 Arab-Israeli War. While the East Bank Jordanians are no longer the majority in Jordan, they continue to control the country's political and military organizations, as well as providing the foundation for Jordan's monarchy. Jordanians of Palestinian descent make up an estimated 55% to 70% of the population. They are more likely to seek employment in the private sector, owing to their stated exclusion from certain public sector and military positions. Though Jordan's 1950 annexation of the West Bank received little international recognition, Jordan retained control of it, including East Jerusalem, until Israel took military control of it during the June 1967 Arab-Israeli War, and it maintained its claim until 1988. When it relinquished it to the Palestine Liberation Organization (PLO. On July 31, 1988, in a national address, the late King Hussein remarked, "We respect the wish of the PLO, the single and legitimate representative of the Palestinian people, to secede from us as an independent Palestinian state." Jordan is a constitutional monarchy ruled by the distinguished Hashemite royal family. King Abdullah II, 61 years old, has ruled the country since 1999, when he replaced his father, the late King Hussein, who had reigned for 47 years. The Jordanian constitution grants the king significant executive powers. The prime minister is appointed by the king, who has the authority to fire or accept his resignation. He also has the sole authority to appoint the crown prince, key military leaders and justices of the Constitutional Court, all senators and cabinet ministers. The Constitution allows the king to dissolve both houses of parliament and postpone lower house elections for 2 years. The Jordan-Israel Peace Treaty, which was signed in 1994, governs Jordan's relationship with Israel. Due to this peace treaty, the two countries' ambassadors were swapped. Israel returned to Jordan approximately 131 square miles of land near the Rift Valley. Jordan's parliament lifted restrictions on contacts with Israel, and the two countries signed a number of bilateral agreements to normalize diplomatic and cultural relations between 1994 to 1996. According to the 1994 agreement, Israel pledged to provide Jordan with 50 million cubic meters of water a year from northern Israel in exchange for specific concessions from Jordan. Pertinently, Jordan is among the most water-scarce countries around the globe, having an annual around 400 cubic meters per person renewable water deficit. To solve the country's water constraint, Jordan inked a water for energy agreement with Israel in 2021, under which Jordan would have built 600 megawatts of solar power capacity to export to Israel in exchange for 200 million cubic meters of desalinated water. The agreement was set to be ratified in October 2023, but as tensions between Amman and Tel Aviv rose throughout Israel's disastrous war on Gaza, it was placed on hold. Pertinently, while Jordanian-Israeli military cooperation is ongoing, civil relations between the two countries fluctuate depending on the attitudes and policy positions held by their respective leaders. Right-of-center Israeli parties, which typically oppose land swaps for peace with the Palestinians, have more difficult relations with the kingdom when in power. As evidenced by the strained relationship between King Abdullah II and Benjamin Netanyahu during the latter's second term as Prime Minister 2009 to 2021. Since 2001, right-wing parties have controlled Israeli politics. According to polls conducted by the Washington Institute for Near East Policy, despite being officially at peace with Israel for nearly 3 decades, a clear majority, 84% of Jordanians of all ages, oppose doing business with Israeli enterprises, even if it benefits their economy. This number is consistent with earlier polls on Jordanian mood performed between July 2020 and March 2022. Furthermore, a majority, 60% of Jordanians, regard Hamas firing of rockets at Israel as somewhat positive, while a minority, 37%, views such operations adversely for the area. In light of Hamas' October 7th strike and the subsequent turbulence in the area, Jordan confronts significant political and security problems in managing these connections. The humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza and the deteriorating conditions in the West Bank, together with Iran's assertive measures, are critical elements influencing Jordan's strategic decisions. The September 8th incident in which a Jordanian truck driver attacked Israeli security at the Allenby Bridge highlights growing popular unhappiness with Israel, despite Jordan's need to preserve constructive relations with its surrounding neighbors. Jordan's relationship with Hamas is significantly impacted by public opinion on the Palestinian cause and the kingdom's own domestic security concerns. Jordan, which has more Palestinian refugees than any other Middle Eastern country, has taken a more nuanced approach to Hamas than Egypt, Saudi Arabia, or the United Arab Emirates. This perspective reflects Jordanians' historical, political, and demographic ties to Palestine, as well as their view of Hamas as a champion of Palestinian rights. As a result, the Jordanian government seeks to preserve some level of interaction with Hamas while also striving to minimize its extremist impact. This delicate balance, however, is compounded by Hamas's previous intervention in Jordanian internal affairs, which resulted in the closing of its Amman headquarters in 1999 and instilled considerable distrust. Following the October 7th attack, images of devastation in Gaza provoked widespread protests in Jordan, with calls to cancel the 1994 Jordan-Israel peace treaty. Hamas swiftly pounced on public outrage, framing its actions as defensive measures against perceived threats from the Israeli far right, including weakening Jordan's custodianship of holy sites in Jerusalem. Following the attack, Khaled Mashal, a former Hamas leader, asked Jordanians to mobilize. Describing the day as a moment of truth, he used slogans that suggested Jordan could serve as a base for Hamas. But widespread public support for Gaza eclipsed earlier reservations about such connotations. In the early weeks of the conflict, Hamas was encouraged by Jordan's public support for Palestinians. According to reports from April, Hamas senior Musa Abu Marzouk suggested transferring the group to Jordan if removed from Qatar, citing the fact that many Hamas leaders had Jordanian citizenship. This speech was interpreted as a tactic to assess public mood and maybe compel the Jordanian government to accept Hamas, but the Jordanian administration flatly rejected the proposal, emphasizing that it has moved on from any ties to Palestinian militant cells. Hosting Hamas would create severe legal and diplomatic issues for Jordan. The International Criminal Court's call to accuse Hamas officials as war criminals means Jordan would be required to detain them under the Rome Statute, which the government prefers to avoid. So far, Jordan has been able to keep Hamas under control, with the population discriminating between support for Gaza and Hamas itself. Many Jordanians oppose Hamas' attempts to foment protests against their own security forces, which are regarded as critical to national stability. The future of Hamas' influence in Jordanian public opinion, as well as how the government balances support for Gaza and Hamas containment, will be critical to Jordan's continued diplomatic issues. Jordan has a legitimate interest in keeping its peace treaty with Israel, as the two countries work together on critical regional security matters outside the Palestinian crisis. The treaty includes critical security cooperation including border security, counterterrorism, and intelligence sharing, which is critical for Jordan's national security, particularly given the turbulent regional context. Disrupting these arrangements could have dire consequences for Jordan's stability. Relations have deteriorated in recent years under Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, as Israel has opposed a two-state solution and certain extreme forces propose Jordan as an alternative homeland for Palestinians. Each outbreak of violence in the West Bank complicates Jordan's stance, requiring it to address the potential collapse of the two-state framework while maintaining its strategic partnership with Israel. This balance act also has implications for Jordan's relationship with America. While the America-Jordan alliance is broad, Jordan and Israel are important American allies in the region and crucial to its policy. Jordan's stability, strategic location, and security cooperation are critical to American interests, making good connections with Israel and Jordan essential for American regional policy. Following the October 7th strikes, Jordan condemned Israeli military actions that resulted in civilian casualties, recalled its ambassador from Tel Aviv, and made the return of the Israeli envoy subject to a cessation of hostilities. Concerns grew that West Bank Palestinians would be driven into Jordan, which already hosts millions of refugees from numerous conflicts, prompting a strong rejection of any forced transfer of Palestinians as a violation of international law and a red line for Jordan. The Prime Minister reiterated that any attempt to evict Palestinians from the West Bank would be interpreted as a declaration of war and a violation of the peace deal, claiming that it would jeopardize Jordan's national security and damage the Palestinian cause. Jordan has recently seen an increase in calls to overturn the peace agreement with Israel and cut all connections with it, with some accusing the Jordanian authorities of treason for supporting the treaty. These sentiments were expressed during recent demonstrations and protests in Jordan against the Gaza conflict, particularly those organized by the Jordanian Muslim Brotherhood. They were also heard after Jordan helped prevent Iran's April 14th missile and drone attack on Israel by intercepting some of the threats that flew over its territory. Following the Iranian attack, Jordanian Foreign Minister Ayman Alabama Safadi responded to calls to revoke the peace treaty with Israel, stating that the treaty is a source of strength for Jordan, particularly because it allows the kingdom to assist Palestinians and advance their cause, as well as protect Jerusalem and its holy sites. He highlighted that revoking this deal will not benefit the Palestinians but will harm them by prohibiting Jordan from aiding them. Other Jordanian officials emphasized that the peace pact with Israel is a strategic choice by Jordan that helps the Palestinians. They further pointed out that Jordan signed this agreement with Israel only after the Palestinians had signed the Oslo Accords with it in 1993. Jordan and Israel may retain ties, but their character will be greatly determined by the Palestinian situation. Failure to seriously handle the Israeli-Palestinian problem endangers both countries' security and stability. Jordan remains dedicated to campaigning for a viable two-state solution and working with international allies to achieve it, all while maintaining its current relationship with Israel. Jordan urgently needs a comprehensive political strategy that emphasizes humanitarian relief, economic development, and Palestinian rights protection, and it must navigate this delicate balancing act. Thank you for watching our YouTube channel, Typographic Man. Don't forget to subscribe to it